My name is Claire Gordon.
I'm Jason Petty.
I'm Grace Sackow.
I'm Lily Valero.
I'm Ben Lyle.
I'm Mitch Breslin.
And I'm Alani Jama.
And we're studying if drones are a viable option for monitoring marine megafauna in mangrove creeks by comparing drone and snorkel surveys. We live in a complex natural world, and one of the biggest questions that ecologists are asking themselves are about animal distributions. Drones are proving to be a viable tool in answering these questions. Why are animals found where they're found? We need to know this because it can help us protect animals when they need protecting. Drones can take photo and video data analysis and can cover a large area with high resolution. They can also access areas that would be difficult otherwise by foot or boat. While drones have been utilized lots in the terrestrial environments, they have not been utilized as much in the marine realm. This survey is helping us provide the limitations of drones while monitoring marine megafauna.
Because there hasn't been a lot of studies done with drones in the marine realm, we had a large scope for research. Luckily in Eleuthera, we had the perfect habitat for monitoring marine megafauna. Now you may be wondering, what is marine megafauna? Marine megafauna simply means any large marine animal. This perfect habitat is mangrove creeks. In mangrove creeks, it also allows us to test the practicality of drones in marine environments. Now, what are mangrove creeks? Mangrove creeks are saltwater inlets that are populated by mangrove trees. These mangrove trees are complex. As you can see here, their roots create complex structures that allow animals to hide within. Mangrove creeks are also complex because they have factors like water visibility, substrate composition, sun glare, and wind ripples over the water. All of these factors are ideal for the animals that live within, but as a drone looking from an aerial view, they all pose a challenge.
So the primary objective of our project is to assess the practicality of using drones to monitor megafauna in mangrove creeks. To do this, we'll be comparing drone with a more conventional type of surveys, such as snorkeling surveys, specifically looking at the species we see and the duration of each survey. This will help provide guidelines in the future for scientists and researchers to see which megafauna are best seen by the drone.
So for our study, we're focusing mainly on two mangrove creeks. These creeks are Kemps Creek and Page Creek. A benefit of these creeks is their closeness and proximity to campus. Most of you actually drove by these creeks on your way to our presentation today. So to begin our survey, we do a drone survey and we send it down a pre-planned flight path, which is represented by blue. And the drones fly 12 meters above the ground at a speed of 6 kilometers per hour. And then immediately after, we do a snorkeling survey. And because we go out at different times in the day, the tides differ. So depending on whether it's high tide or low tide, we'll do a snorkeling or wading survey. But just for clarity, we left the wading surveys out of our results. So for Page Creek, we follow the exact same path as the drone. And then for Kemps Creek, we split up into two different groups, and we travel down two paths to make sure that we cover the same amount of area as the drone. And during these, we record every time we see one of our study species, which Ben will go into later, and we record the date and the time.
So after we complete our survey during the day, we head back to the classroom, where we, as a group, we review our species and the abundance we capture on drones that day. To make sure we don't miss anything, we review all of our film twice. The species are large, and they're easily seen by drones and snorkel surveys, and they're also very ecologically important. The species include bonefish, Caribbean whiptail stingray, houndfish, lemon shark, and barracuda, both juvenile and adult. And we differentiate because juvenile live between the mangrove roots, and adults live in the channels.
These are our results. On the left side, you can see we have Kemps Creek, where we completed 6 drone and snorkel surveys. And on the right, we have Page Creek, where we did 7 drone and snorkel surveys. These graphs are showing the average animals seen per survey, split up into each species. The blue represents the animals we saw by drone, and the yellow represents the animals we saw by snorkeling. On the left side of each graph, we have the bonefish and lemon shark. These species were better seen by drone compared to snorkeling surveys. In the middle of the graphs, we have the houndfish and the Caribbean whiptail stingray. Both these species were pretty evenly seen by both methods of surveying. And on the right side of each graph, we have the barracuda, both juvenile and adult. These animals were better seen by our snorkeling surveys versus our drone surveys. This is the time taken per survey. Again, blue representing the drone and yellow representing the snorkel survey. As you can see, the drone was much more time efficient than the snorkeling survey. However, we did have to double the time that our drone survey took, represented by the black dotted line, because we had to go back and watch the video that the drone took. However, the drone survey was still much more efficient than the snorkeling survey.
As Mitch said earlier, different animals are better seen using different types of surveys. For example, the lemon shark and the bonefish are better seen during the drone surveys due to the quiet nature of the survey. Both of these animals are known to be skittish creatures, and they're often scared away by the sound of our snorkel surveys. Another hypothesis is that the barracuda, which tend to reside within the mangrove roots, cannot be seen by the aerial view of the drone, but are very easily spotted during our snorkel surveys. So what are the implications of these findings? Snorkel surveys are a common method used to measure the biodiversity within mangrove creeks. However, previously conducted surveys may have underrepresented various species. In contrast, drones are an efficient and effective way to assess the distribution of marine megafauna within mangrove creeks. One recommendation when conducting these drone surveys is to take the habitat and the behavior of the animal into account. However, once you consider these factors, drones can be a versatile way to monitor various species within multiple environments. These are our literature cited, and we would like to thank the Island School, the Cape Eleuthera Institute, Nathan and Julia, our research advisors, the CEI interns and gap year students for helping us conduct our surveys, Kate Kincaid and Cameron Ragoose, Luke Madden and Maddie Mazzola for taking all of our pictures, and thank you for listening. And this is some of the best drone footage that we've captured. Hold on. There we go. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Can you imagine a time when artificial intelligence would go replace the human on the drone footage?
Anyone?
Is it easy enough to spot that you can put computers on it, or?
You want to take that?
The question was, do we think computers could eventually be able to recognize the animals on the drone survey better than humans? Or as good as humans? In the future, that is a very good possibility. At the moment, especially here at the Island School, we do not have that technology available to us. But hopefully in the future, that would be a possibility. Any other questions?
How deep are those creeks that go up?
He asked how deep are the creeks usually. So both Page and Kemp's are between, if it's a high tide, they're usually 3 feet, and we'll snorkel them in 3 feet. Or if they're low tide, we can walk in shin deep water and run that. Yes.
First of all, compliments. This is amazing. Did you do the research simultaneously, drone and snorkel, or did you do them sequentially?
So the question is, do we do them simultaneously or sequentially? We do the snorkeling surveys directly after the drone surveys to make sure that we are going to be in the same area as the animals that we just spotted on drone. We want to make sure that we can look for them during our snorkeling surveys.
Is there a big difference in how high the drone is from the surface of the water in terms of seeing things or seawater, whether it's higher or closer?
She asked if the height of the drone can affect how well we can see the animals in the creeks. In our spare time, we actually went out and conducted surveys at different heights with the drone at 6 meters, 12 meters, which we normally did, and at 24 meters. With the footage we got from that, we concluded that the 12 meters was the best height to see the animals because 6 meters was a little too close and you couldn't necessarily see the entirety of the creek. But at 24 meters, it was so high up that you couldn't necessarily spot all the animals that were in the creek. So we decided that 12 meters would be the best height for our surveys.
What were your expectations when you were assigned this project, and what were the realities?
The question asked is what were the expectations when we first started this project and the realities now? When we first started the project, we actually were going to focus on 10 marine megafauna because we had read in a scientific article that these creeks had been studied and all 10 of those creatures had been found in it. But as our project was ongoing, we saw a decline of the creatures that were mentioned and we didn't see any of them. So we decided to just mainly focus on the ones that Ben had said earlier.
Why did you describe the weighting surveys?
Since we don't have that much time, it was a lot harder to explain having the wading and snorkeling surveys in there. So it was mostly just for clarity to make it easier to understand the graphs.
Which one did you like to do better? Learning or snorkeling?
The question was, which one do we like to do better, droning or snorkeling? The snorkeling is a lot more physical and you have to do a lot more work. So the drone is really fun to fly. So I'd definitely say drone.